Okay, so good morning, students. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
yes, in the previous lecture we have discussed about, because today the class is regarding the soft optimization techniques. So in the last lecture we have discussed about the basics of the optimization technique, and the module that I have continuing, or I have started for this semester for this particular subject is the multi-objective optimization. So I have discussed about the basics of multi-objective optimization, how is it different from a single objective, okay, and what are the problems that we generally come across when dealing with a multi-objective optimization problem. That means there are conflicts between the different objectives. That means whenever you are dealing with multi-objective, that means you are optimizing any problem. Optimizing means you are finding the best solution, the optimum solution for a particular problem, and the problem has more than one objective function. Okay. So for example, we have considered the example. Suppose you are buying a mobile phone and you are opening any online shopping app. Okay. In the app, there is an option called filter, where you can select that you may choose that, because whenever you are searching for a mobile phone, you will get more than 1000 to 5000, 10,000 options for mobile phones. So first of all, you have to choose that you are looking for a smartphone. Number one, you filter that. So that was a single objective function. That means the app will show you only smartphones from all the different mobile phones. So it will not show you the phones which are not smartphones. But if you keep that filter on and again you impose another filter, that suppose the range is within 15,000, so that will be a second objective. That means the mobile app is optimized in such a way that it will operate in such a way that it will perform, or it will show you results as per the filter. So first of all, the first criteria was that it will be showing you the smartphone. Okay. Then it should be within 15,000 price. Okay. Then if you impose another filter that the battery should be 5000 milliampere hour, suppose, minimum. So that is the second objective. So you can see, then you will see that you will get the search results, and the result is reduced to, say, suppose 100 only mobile phones you will get. So you can easily choose among 100 phones. So you can see the entire, you got the product because you are getting the options of 100 phones. Previously you have started with 5000 phones. Now it is resolved to 100 phones, 100 solutions. So that means the app is designed in such a way that inside the app there is a programming, and the programming is performed, or it is being written, the code is written in such a way to solve the different objective functions and also multi-objective functions. So behind that particular app, this particular code is solved in such a way that if the user is selecting n number of filters, that means n number of objectives should be run at the same time. So you have to show the optimum result. Everything should match. So this is a very basic practical example of a multi-objective function. Okay. Now the formulation. Basically, a multi-objective optimization problem has more than one objective function. In engineering problems, usually two objectives to be optimized. Generally two objectives are there, and more than two objectives are also there. Okay. The multi-objective problems may also have one or more constraints, including inequality, equality, and variable bounds to be satisfied. Now there are constraints. Constraints means that you have to solve a problem where there are, say, multi-objectives. Suppose there are two objective functions are there. Okay. But there are constraints also. Constraint means that the result which you will get, you should not exceed the limit. So because that means you should not exceed the limit. So in the particular example where we have just discussed that you are searching for a smartphone within 15,000 rupees and 5000 milliampere battery, so that product will be shown to you, but the app will not show any product which is not delivered by the app. Okay. or it will not show any product which is not delivered by the seller who are connected to them. Okay, generally that is not though this is the constraint. So in practical case there are many constraints like that. Okay, so so you will be I will be explaining to you what are the different type of constraints. Okay, what are inequality constraints, what are equality constraints, what are variable bounds. So these things I will be showing you in this lecture with the different numerical examples. Okay, so however in real engineering applications usually more than one constraint is involved in the problem. So there are multiple constraints, just like we have multiple objective functions. So constraints are also multiple types, different varieties. So general formulation of a multi-objective problem, optimization problem, is defined as follows. Suppose you take this problem. This is a mathematical problem where it is told that you have to maximize the following two objective functions. You have to maximize. So objective functions generally, basically, are of two types. One is maximizing, one is minimizing. Maximizing means you have to find the maximum result. Okay, because this kind of test functions, these are called test functions. So these are used for testing the optimization problem. These are testing optimization problem because optimization is always solved using some algorithms, different type of optimization techniques. So those algorithms will be discussed to you or with you by the this particular subject. There are other modules also, so those topics will be discussed by the other teachers also. Okay, so algorithms means there are different type of algorithms. This is PSO, generic algorithm. Then we have the ABC algorithm, BAT algorithm. So different algorithms. That means these techniques are used for solving the optimization problems. So using those techniques, you have to determine the maximum value for this objective function. Suppose function f1 is there, okay, which is 1 plus a1 minus b1 square, okay, where a1 and b1 values are given and a2 and b2 values are also given. Okay, I think this will be a2, this will be a2. Okay, and the second is another problem which is another objective function. So this is a multi-objective function. That means you have to maximize both the objective functions. To maximize the following two objective functions all together, where the variables are this x, x2. Okay, because the a1 is this, you can see it is a fixed value, because if you solve this a1 and a2, you will get a fixed result. But if you want to solve b1 and b2, you have to change the values of x1 and x2. So x1 and x2 are the variables. So you will start from say 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, any random variable, then you will update it, and you go to next iteration. If the result is better than what it is more than the first iteration, then the variables will be updated, because you want to maximize the result. So you have to maximize both. So how it is possible? So you have to apply this concept of C and C++. That means you are writing a MATLAB code and you want to maximize the two functions simultaneously. So you will write a vertical variable f1 equals to, you will write this equation, and f2 write this equation. You have to increase it, maximize it. Okay, so for any value of f1 you will get some results, for f2 you will get another result. Okay, because a1 is fixed but b2 is dependent on x, and x is also a separate equation, so both the equations should be maximized. Okay, so this is an basic example of a, you can say, optimization problem, okay, using a test function. This is a test function, and if you see, this is a range, this is a constraint, because the previous one you can see over it was written variable bounds. So that means the variable of x and x2, okay, should be within minus pi to pi, because obviously this is in radians, so it should not be less than minus pi, it should not be more than pi. So whatever value solution you are getting for x1 and x2, it should be within minus pi and pi. Okay, so that means you're determining the value of pi x1, and you're putting the, suppose you are putting minus pi over here and pi for x2, you will see that you are getting some result. If you change it to minus pi by 2 and again pi by 2, you will see that you are getting better, more output is more. That means your objective is to increase the function f1 and f2. If the function f1 and f2 has increased, the value has increased, that means these values of x1 and x2 are better. So you will take these values and then you will update. And suppose next time what you will do, you will say you will take pi by 4 and pi by 3. You will see that you are getting better result. Then again you will update, you say pi by 5, pi by 7. Then you will see that your result is decreasing. That means it is not a better option. So you have to again change it in such a way that after a certain time, suppose 100 iterations, you will see that suppose after 20 iterations, you have got a value, say pi by 12 and pi by 7. x1 is pi by 12, x2 is pi by 7, suppose. Then if you keep on changing, you will see that no, you are not getting the better result, because maximum result is obtained when x1 is pi by 12, x2 is pi by 7. Suppose the result is 50. And if you keep on changing x1, x2, it is not increasing above 50. So it will not change the value of x1 and x2. You will keep the value of x1 and x2 for which you are getting the value of 50 to be maximum. So that means your optimization has been converged. Problem has been converged. You are getting an optimal result. So this might hurt a little bit complex to you, but if you start writing a program code, it will be very easy, because it is a very easy method. Okay, so optimization techniques are quite easy, and it solves a lot of problems in every engineering field, not only electrical, not only computer science, but every engineering field. Okay. Now implementation of the problem. So I have just shown you an example of a multi-objective function. So now let us see what will be, how to represent, because we will go slowly. Suppose we start with a single objective function. So it is a sphere function. This is a very common function and it is used as a test function always. So sphere function means it is a minimizing function. So you have to determine the values of x. Okay, suppose n number of x's are there, and if you add them, the values will become 0. Okay, so this is an unconstant, because there are no constants. Why constants are not there? Because the range of x is not given. The range is x is not given. You don't have to concentrate on this. This is a different case. Okay, so range of x is not given. That means it is not told that whether x should be less than 1 or x should be greater than, should not be greater than 10. It should not be, it should be within this range and this range. No, the range is not given. It is open to all. The sky is the limit. You have to determine the values of x in such a way that you obtain get the optimal result for the sphere function. So this is a single objective function which has no constant in it. Okay. Now this is another test function which is called the ellipsoidal function. Okay, so this is equation of an ellipse. So here also you have to determine the values of x. Okay, where a constant value is given. A is a positive parameter, so you can take a as any positive parameter. Okay, so this is a objective function, another single objective function which has no constant. Okay, now this is a third objective function. Okay, this is a third objective function where here one second, here also a constant is given, but this is not generally considered as a constant. This is just considered as a range, so you not call it a constant. Okay, the constants are what we will be seeing, that we will be discussing later in the later example. But if a range is given, it is not always considered as a constant. It's just a range. Range is generally given. In this previous case, range is not given. In the previous two cases, that is a different case. But if range is given, suppose x1 and x2 should be within 5, 0 to 5, then it is okay. But it is not considered as a constant. It is just a range. Okay, because if you violate the range, you will not get any optimal result. It will not converge. So it is just a range, not a constant, you can say. Okay. So this is called the Goldstein price function. Okay, this is an objective function. It is a little bit complicated, bigger one, but not complicated because it is a quadratic function. You can see. Okay, and this is another very popular objective function, which is called the Rosenbrock function. So Rosenbrock function is used generally as an you can say minimizing function. Okay, so you have to find the minimum value such that the range of x1 and xi is along within this value, xi is within this value. Okay, so another unconstant single objective function. Now if I introduce constraint, so this is a constant test functions, so test function 1. This is a constant test function where it is a single objective, not a multi-objective, only one objective function. You can see fx is only one objective function, and the values of x1 and x2 are the variables. So see, fx is a single objective function, but x1 and x2 are the variables, and the variables should be within this range 0 to 6. So this is not a constant, it is just a range. But constants come here when it is said that subject to g1x and g2x. That means you have to find the value of fx in such a way that if you get a value of x, suppose x you are getting 1.7 x1 and x2 you are getting 2.1, you will say that this is my result. But if your result is this, so you have to put this result in equation g1 and g2 also, and see if you put the results over here g1 g2, if it has to be greater than 0, greater than or equals to 0. If not, if the values are negative, then that means these solutions will not be considered. So you have to take use another solution, choose another solution variables for this solving this problem. That means this is discarded. Previously what was there, if you get any value of say x1 and x2, or over here x1 and xi, so it will not be discarded. You will see that whether the objective function is minimized or not. If it is reduced, then you can accept that value. But in this case, if the objective function is reduced using these two variables, then also you can accept it, because you have to check whether g1 and g2 is satisfying or not. If g1 and g2 is satisfying, if you put the values of x1 and x2 in these equations, and if the solution of these equations are greater than equals to 0, then you can say yes, now this is a good solution. Now you can use this and you can update for the next value using these solutions. Then you can update it to 1.8 or 1.9 like that and see whether it is better or not. That means it is accepted, and now you can you can go further for the next iteration. But if it does not fulfill the constant, then it will not be accepted. So this is a constant equation optimization problem. That means you have a objective function for which you will get the solutions, but that solution, when you will put in the constant should also be satisfied. So you have to satisfy a constant also. That means you are getting a solution, that is not enough. You have to satisfy the constant. If it is satisfying the constant, then it is accepted. Then you can again update it for the next variable, and you can update the variables. Then you put the variables in the objective function fx. If you get the solution, then you will check whether g1 and g2 are satisfying or not. If yes, then it is accepted. Then you go for the again update x1 x2, then again put on fx, and you get again new values of x1 and x2 solutions. You put for g1 and g2. If it is not supporting, it is violating g1 g2, then you will take the previous one. Again you have to update it. You cannot go to the next iteration. So this is a constant single objective optimization problem. Okay, this is another constant test function which is called the bin and corn test function. This one you can see you have to minimize. This is a multi-objective. You have to minimize two objective functions, f1 and f2. So same thing, previously what we have seen that it was a single objective function but constant. Here we have a multi-objective functions. That means two functions are there, f1 and f2, and then two constants are there, and the ranges of x1 and x2 are given. So x1 should be from 0 to 5 and x2 should be 0 to 3. Then you can put these values. Suppose you are taking random value, suppose 1 and this is 3. You put the values and see whether it is minimum value or not, because you know won't be able to understand minimum because you're just putting the first value. Okay, you put it, you will get a result, and those variables you cannot update it because you have to check for C1 and C2 also. You will check for C1 and C2 also. If C1 and C2 is satisfied, then you can say okay, 1 and 3 can be updated, and you update it to get 1.1 and 2.9. Then you put it and you will see that yes, now it is less than the previous one. So this is a better result. Now better result, that means you have to update again. So but before updating, you have to again check the constant one, equality. So these are called the inequality constant. Okay, these are called the, sorry, these are the equality constant. Okay, equality constant, because you are seeing some equality. Okay, this is equality constant. This is another constant. This is also one constant, but this is not a typical constant. So that is why it is called inequality constants. This one, this is called the that means the boundary, or also it is generally called the inequality constants. So it is not a critical one, but critical ones are the equality constants. Equality constants are generally the critical ones. Okay, and inequality constants are not critical, but they are also constants. Okay, did you understand the concept about constants? Hello? If you have any question, you can ask, because this is generally a different topic, because it is not directly related to electrical engineering. Okay, but this is very much applicable because it can be applied in any research work or any practical project work also, in many industries also. These optimization techniques are always used nowadays, because everything nowadays is performed using computer. So computational techniques are very much important in every field, whether you are going for if you're going for a higher study, if you're working as an engineer, if you're working in a project, whatever, these computation techniques will come across anytime. If you're working with a good project in a good company, you will see that you have to solve optimization techniques. For that, if you are having the capability, then you will be hired. Otherwise, they will say that if you don't have a capability optimization, then what will happen? A company will recruit electrical engineers along with computer engineers for these optimization problems. But if you have a resume that you are able to present yourself in such a way that, sir, I am an electrical engineer, I have the electrical skills, and also I am also proficient with this optimization techniques, and I am a very good programmer also, then obviously they will hire you with a higher package, because they don't have to hire two different engineers from two different fields, because you are having the specialization in both the fields. So this is the craze nowadays. So all the different engineers or different fields are actually getting trained in optimization problems. Okay. Now I will be showing you one practical case. Suppose if I show you a paper regarding the research. Okay. Okay, if you see, this is a practical, you can say this is just a research work, which is the adaptive multiple evolutionary algorithms search for multi-objective optimum reactive power dispatch. So optimum reactive power dispatch is a problem. Okay, because we know that reactive power is utilized everywhere, because any inductor or any induction machine which has inductors in it, basically you can say every electrical machine, generally transformer or a synchronous motor or induction motor, consume reactive power. Why? Because they have to magnetize the field, because if they do not magnetize the field, the transformer doesn't magnetize the field, it will not be able to create flux. So reactive power is consumed by the transformers. Okay, so that means reactive power should be in ample quantity in the system. Okay, this is very important. Otherwise, what will happen? The voltage drop will start, because in HVDC also, I have explained the reactive power is also important, because otherwise voltage drop will be, because you have studied in power system, I think, load flow. Have you studied? Have you studied that means in Newton-Raphson and in fast decouple, you have studied that there is a coupling. So can you tell me in which two parameters we have coupling? If I tell you there are bus voltages, bus voltage V and reactive power. Suppose I tell you reactive power Q, active power P and Q is there, and voltage V is there, and load angle del is there. V is the bus voltage. So which two parameters are coupled and which are not coupled, which are decoupled? Anyone? Akshay, can you remember?
Sir, I can't remember right now.
Okay, anyone? Did you understand my question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what I'm saying, in power system you have studied in load flow. Okay, so I'm just telling you the question once again. So you have the four parameters like this. Okay, so generally we know that using these four parameters we decide, because every bus has any two of the parameters. So using those parameters we know that if a PV bus is there, it is a generator bus, it is a load bus, and it is a slack bus. But these four parameters, among them there are two parameters which are related to each other, which are P and P and del. They are coupled, and Q and V are coupled. That means if the load angle increases, the power transmission increases generally. Okay, if the load angle increases, because V is also there, but load angle is very much significantly impactful for the active power transfer. Okay, and V is coupled with reactive power. So if the reactive power is not within sufficient quantity, then the bus voltage may fall. So this is a very, you can say, critical case. Okay, so that is why this reactive power should be within the specified limit for every area. So wherever there is a reactive power demand, it should be fulfilled. That is why we generally use capacitor banks, we generally use these fax devices, synchronous condenser. Okay, so these equipments are used for compensating the reactive power, that means to fulfill the reactive power demand. So now the problem is that we have to locate where we will locate. Suppose we have a system, suppose 100 buses are there. Okay, 100 bus. So you have a grid of 100 bus, a system of 100 bus. That means 100 bus bar. So every bus bar you have to now locate which is a generator bus, which are the generator bus, which are the load bus, and among them one generator bus has to be considered as a slack bus. Now between these 100 buses, suppose if I take a simple example, since you have studied in power system, if I take a simple example, if you have a 3 bus system, okay, it is bus number 1, bus number 2 and bus number 3, and you have transmission line like this, suppose. So bus 1 and 3 are connected, 2 and 3 are connected, but 1 and 3 it is not connected. Okay, so that means 2 transmission lines are there. Similarly, if there are 100 buses and if all the buses are connected, okay, they can be randomly connected, so there may be more than 100 transmission lines. There can be 140 transmission lines. Okay, it is possible, because for it is generally more than that, because if you take 4, 5, 6 buses, if they are internally connected like this, Okay, they're connected in this way. This bus is connected to here, this is connected to this bus, this is connected to this bus, and this is connected to this bus. You can see 1 2 3 4 5 6 buses are there, but more than 6 transmission lines are possible. Okay, so there are, suppose we have a system, we have a network where 100 bus bars are there and 140 transmission lines are there. Now, along this 100 bus bar, 10 are PV bus, one is a slack bus, okay, and 89 PQ buses, load buses. Okay, so now in the load buses, and in the load, because in PV buses we have a alternator, so you don't have to connect any, you can say, reactive power device, because alternators can generate reactive power along with active power. So they generate apparent power. So 89 buses, there are cases where 32 buses require the reactive power compensating device. Suppose they require capacitor bank. Now we have to identify which 32 buses are there, because it is observed that 32 buses, or you can say it is not given, because that will be easier. Suppose 32 buses are not given. Suppose you have to calculate for how many buses you need capacitor bank, what is the quantity and what are the locations, because if you know the locations, then obviously you can count them. So it is not the quantity, it's just the locations. That means in 89 PQ buses, in how many buses do you require capacitor bank, because there are reactive power demand. Okay, so you have to calculate that. Okay, because generally it happens, because obviously if there are 89 PQ buses and there are 140 transmission lines, then obviously there will be capacitor requirement of capacitor bank, because there will be reactive power demand, excessive reactive power demand. So before connecting the grid, you have to do this calculation. Otherwise, if the grid is connected, the grid will collapse. It is not that you are connecting to the grid, you are getting the result and you are observing, okay, so these buses need capacitor bank. Okay, then I will incorporate, I will be ordering capacitor bank to the vendors. They will give me quotations, then I will purchase them, then I will put it. No, before doing all this, before charging the power, you have to do all these things beforehand, because if you charge the power, if the voltage collapse, system collapse, so that will create a loss of you can say a lot of economic loss. So as an engineer, you have to first do the calculations, then you can come to the conclusion that the power can be charged, because I have all this set up. Then generally minor problems do arise, but the major problem should not arise. For that you have been employed by the company. Okay, that means out of 89 buses, you have to know which buses require capacitor bank for reactive power compensation. Okay, now that is the problem. Now there is, in this case, optimal reactive power dispatch, generally it tells you that you have to optimally locate the reactive power, but you have to keep something other objective also. Here the two objectives are, you have to, this is a multi-objective function where two objectives are there. That means the variables are the reactive power compensation. Okay, the reactive power compensation is there, then voltage of the bus bar is there, and tap setting of the tap changing transformer is there. Generally this is a problem, this is just an example of a problem I am telling you. So three variables. Number one is reactive power, how much reactive power you have to inject and which location. Number two is bus bar voltage, it is also variable, because if reactive power is injected, the voltage will change. Okay, so you have to control that. And tap changing transformer is also there, because transformers have to consume reactive power, so at which tap setting it should be optimally located. Okay, now the objective is the power loss should be minimum and the voltage deviation, that means the voltage of the bus bar should not deviate from the desired value. Suppose the voltage is say 33 kV and it is considered to be 1 per unit, so it should be within 1 to 1.05 per unit or 0.95 to 1.05 per unit, because always the calculations are done with respect to per unit system. Okay, So this is the thumb rule that in power engineering, power system engineering, always the load flow studies are performed in per unit system. So suppose the voltage should be within 0.95 to 1.5. If it is not, then the voltage deviation is more, then the system will collapse. So our objective function is two objective functions. Number one is power loss. This is the equation how to calculate the power loss. So power loss of a system of n number of buses. And number two objective function is the voltage deviation. So using this ui and uj are the voltage. So u are the voltages. U is the voltage, bus voltage, and NL means it is the load buses. So these are the load bus voltage of the load buses. Okay, and these load bus voltages should be within this limit. So whatever value you get, you should not violate the voltage deviation. So you can see two objective functions, both are actually conflicting each other. Okay, so two objective functions you have to minimize. Number one is power loss, you have to minimize. Also you have to minimize voltage deviation also. Two things simultaneously. And now we have constants. These are called the equality constants. You can see equal sign is there. That means whatever values of u and j you get, that means these are the variables. Okay, voltage, I have told you voltage is a variable. Now whatever value of voltage you get, this equation should be satisfied. What is this equation? This is actually the power balance. That means if you are solving any power flow equation or load flow equation, you will always know that power generated equals to power consumed plus losses, isn't it? If it is not satisfying, then obviously your system is, you will not get the accurate result. This is a constant, because that means whatever value of voltage you are getting after load flow, okay, you have to put it in the actual equation of power balance equation. Why? Because if you are getting a voltage of any result, okay, there are say 100 buses, you are getting 100 voltages, you are very happy, yes, I have got the results of 100 voltages. This is the power load flow result. But if you check in the power balance, it is seen that no, it is not satisfying the power balance equation, because generation should be equals to loss plus load. Okay, loss plus load. Obviously, because if it is not a lossless system, then there will be loss. If it is a lossless system, then generation equals to load. But practically there are losses. So this equation has to be satisfied, both for active power and reactive power. So these are the power balance equation. Okay. Now this is the inequality constant, the range. You can see these are the inequality constants. These also constant but inequality. That means the voltage should be within the minimum limit and maximum limit, that is 0.95 to 1.5. Number one. Number two is reactive power, that is to be compensated, should be also minimum and maximum. Now, suppose you have a capacitor bank. Capacitor bank is having a capacity of, say, it can operate not less than 10 MVAr and not more than 30 MVAr. So there is a limit, because you have a capacitor bank of specified limit. So you cannot take capacitor's capacity of 40 MVAr. No, that result is not correct, because a 30 MVAr capacitor bank cannot produce 40 MVAr reactive power. So there is also a constant. And tap setting of a transformer is also within limit, because if there are 10 taps, you cannot use 20 taps. You have to use 10 taps. So minimum and maximum value should also be there. So these are the inequality constants and these are the equality constants. So keeping this in mind, you have to solve these two equations simultaneously. That means F loss and FVD, voltage deviation. So that means this is a multi-objective constant problem where it is related to power system engineering. You're actually electrical engineering field. So that means as an electrical engineer, if such a problem is given to you, you have to write a program code, okay, using MATLAB. Okay, then you have to find the solutions of minimum power loss. That means you have to tell that yes, I have achieved the minimum power loss, whatever it was reported earlier by the previous engineer 1 year ago, I have got a better result. That means if you put these values of voltages and these values of tap setting of a transformer and these values of the capacitor bank, then you will get the power loss will be minimized more, and the voltage deviation will also get minimized. Okay, so this is the approach of solving any objective function or multi-objective function. Pareto optimality we will introduce in the next class. Okay, so did you understand up to here? If you have any question, you can ask. I'm just giving you a basic idea of the multi-objective optimization problem. This is just a basic concept. And what is a constraint? That means how does a multi-objective optimization problem along with equality constraint and inequality constraint, how they are represented, how they are solved, that also I have discussed. Regarding this, if you have any question, you can ask. Any question, Akshay?
No, sir.
Deepak?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, then, okay, so I will be concluding my lecture here. Okay, then we will continue because tomorrow we have a class of HVDC also. Okay, so we will meet in the next class. Okay, so thank you then.
Thank you, sir.